Hey everyone, Strat right here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Forever Winter. I bought it day of, I tried to play it day of, that didn't go as planned due to a not great release, but we're going to give it some leeway because obviously it's a early access to an early access. So yeah, keep that in mind throughout this whole video. I understand the circumstances around the game being an early access to an early access. Like it was really early released just because they wanted to get feedback right off the start and they wanted to give the fans a chance to play it even earlier. So keep that in mind. I understand that. But I was thinking about it because BigFry, he released a video not too long ago, like a week or two ago now, and received a lot of flack over it due to how he played the game, his takes on issues with the game, etc. And while I think some of that flack was definitely deserved, he's very poor when it comes to taking criticism. Also, he did go into that game, not to be that guy, but he was playing it wrong in a lot of the cases. And I know he in the comments he was arguing about that, saying, no, I'll play it right or whatever. And then he even made another video where he was playing it right. And then proceeded in that video to say that enemies spawned on top of him and killed him when they were very obviously there ahead of time. They had spawned way earlier and he just didn't see them, which is fine. Mistakes happen. I don't blame him really for how he thought about it. I think he was, like, with the amount of flack he was getting over stupid stuff on top of genuine criticisms, I understand why he got so defensive over it, but at the same time, his taking of criticism can be criticized in itself because it wasn't great. And I don't like hate BigFry or anything. I've watched a decent amount of his videos, but there's steps he could have taken to avoid all of the backlash he had. But really, I was thinking about, was he right about some of his criticisms? And I think he was, because I was playing the game, and obviously he mentioned, he's like, the animations don't look good, the performance runs bad, and that's all true. The performance is terrible. I have to turn my game down to a 1920 by 1080 rather than 1440p just to run at like 60 to 80 frames on medium to high settings. That shouldn't be happening. I have a 3070 and a 5900X. So that should not be an issue, and I have 64 gigs of RAM on top of that, and it's on an SSD, an M.2. So I should not be running into this poor performance. Like I said, I understand it's an early access to an early access, but I think that is a valid criticism. The game has a very poor performance. Hopefully they'll get that fixed later on, but keep that in mind if you're going to get this game. You might not even be able to run it, because I have a pretty good system and I can barely run that game. If I want to have it on 1440p, it's on low graphics and I don't even get a consistent 60 FPS. It'll switch from like 70 to 20. It's so random. I do want to add in really quick. My friend was playing this. He has similar specs to my system. He has a worse CPU, but a better graphics card, like both slightly in either direction. And he's able to run the game a lot better than I am. Don't know why, because we do have such similar setups. He actually has less RAM, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe it's, I don't know. It could be certain configurations. It just doesn't work like at all. I don't know. I did want to add that in though really quick, just to give people a heads up that for some people it might run fine. For me though, not so much. And then he was talking about how the stealth mechanics, they don't work. And he was definitely right. The stealth mechanics are non-existent, because he made a point about how it's impossible to play the game as intended because you can't actually stealth and rat around as it wants you to. And that is a definite problem with the game. The stealth mechanics are broken. They don't work. Sometimes an enemy will be walking by you as you're hiding, and they'll just turn and instantly aggro onto you. The little question mark thing never loads up, nothing. Other times, you could run right by them and they won't notice. And that's how it's kind of supposed to be, because if they're distracted fighting something else, they're not really supposed to notice you. But then there's other times that they're not doing anything. They don't see you run right by them. And then, like I said, other times they'll instant aggro to you when you're hiding. It's a very strange system that doesn't seem to work right. Also, they really need to work on like staying in the shadows and stuff. Like if I'm in a completely dark area of the map, because the maps have like really dark areas. If I can't see the enemy, there's no way they should be able to see me. I'll put it like that. Or if like they're standing in the light and I'm in like a really deep shadow, they shouldn't be able to see me. A good example of that happening in another game that has stealth mechanics is Ghost Recon. The last two games both have good nighttime hiding mechanics, at least good enough, where you can, if you're hiding in a dark area, you're going to be harder to see. and that definitely needs to be implemented. I don't think it is, because there's times where it really feels like there's like no way you should be seen, and then you get spotted instantly. So yeah, the stealth mechanics, they need some major work. They don't work very well at all. What else did he bring up? Basically just he said there was a lot of bugs and stuff, and there is. I was running into all sorts of things. I was playing with one of my friends. He would fall through the ground on several occasions. I fell through like the actual terrain, so I'd be inside of rocks and stuff in multiple cases. A lot of issues regarding that. Again, I don't really have a problem with it now because this game is so early into it, but it's something to keep in mind if you're planning on buying the game. I think my main issue though comes with that the game, it takes, like, I didn't have fun with it until like at least 3 hours in. The game is so broken, and like so many things don't work, that on top of the learning curve, which granted for me wasn't that bad since I play a lot of similar games, like Tarkov and stuff. Well, I say similar, extract games where you avoid AI and get to an extract, whatever. Similar games to some extent. So I didn't really have a huge issue with learning curve. A majority of like the learning curve for me was actually just learning how to get around the bugs. The bugs are rampant, and it was frustrating to play against them until I built a better understanding. And even then, I still run into some that just like my game will crash over something stupid. Like I'll try to enter some code into a keypad and my game crashes, or just the keypad doesn't work. I've had a lot of issues with that for some reason, where you put in the code and it's not that I'm getting it wrong. Sometimes it'll be like, yeah, you're correct, door won't open, or I'll get it correct, like I'll double check it and it just says it's incorrect. I don't know why it's not able to check that properly, and you could just say, oh no, you probably got it wrong. But no, I've definitely had it right on multiple occasions and nothing worked. Anyways, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked by that because that specific bug gets on my nerves. But yeah, a large part of the learning curve is just figuring out how to avoid bugs and where to go. And another huge issue is that this game prides itself on the AI and how every match is supposed to be different. This is not true. Every match is exactly the same. I mean, you can make it different if you try to, but you shouldn't have to try to make the matches different, because all of the AI, almost every single time, the same AI will spawn in the exact same places, or an equivalent of that AI will spawn in the exact same places. So you go about the map the exact same way every time, unless you purposely choose to go somewhere else and do something different. Otherwise, it'll end up being the exact same playthrough. I know this because I'll play through a match, and I've found methods on multiple maps where if I go a certain route and do certain things, no matter what, I'll always live and always have a ton of money by the end of it. It's honestly, it's a little ridiculous that that's even happening, because that, like, even with it being an early access to an early access, that's like the base mechanics. So that does worry me a little bit, because they're gonna have to put in a lot of work to change that. A good example is on, which map is it? Ashen something. It's like a big open battlefield. I'll show video of that. But yeah, a good example is of that map. If you spawn in the starter spawn, like, you can choose spawns, but if you start in the one that they start you off at, almost every single time, I can tell you what enemies are going to spawn. There's going to be 2 sets of drones that start fighting. They spawn after a few seconds. And then you look down, and there's going to be 2 groups of foot soldiers fighting. And then to the left, there's another group of foot soldiers fighting, and usually a few more drones. And this can change slightly, where sometimes the drones won't spawn, and then it's all foot soldiers. Most of the time it's the drones, though. And then I usually go left. I go into the village. There will almost always be a group of enemies that spawns right in the village, right in front of you. They just spawn there, either protecting hostages or just starting to walk towards you immediately. Sometimes there will be drones with them as well. Then if you go right into the there's like the village goes, there's like a bunch of stairs and stuff. If you go up there, sometimes enemies will spawn up there. Almost never, though. You go up there, you can loot around. You go back around back to the place where those enemies had spawned before. That's another thing, actually, I should mention really quick. The loot is almost always exactly the same too. I know exactly where explosives are going to be. I know where lockboxes are. I know where water is. It spawns the same every single time. I don't know if this is on purpose or what, but I shouldn't be able to know where all these things are every single time, because I became a millionaire within, I don't know, like no time. It took me no time to become a millionaire in that game. It's so easy once you learn those maps and learn what the enemy spawns are. But okay, from there, there's two extracts. There's one that's across this big open field where mechs always spawn. Usually there's two medium, I think they're European mechs, and then some T90s on the other side. And that's usually how it goes. They start fighting. You go over there, there's going to be a group of enemies that are blocking a bridge that leads to the extract. It's almost always an exo and like 5 to 8 foot soldiers almost every single time. I swear to God. And if you sit behind this cover and just wait a second, they'll move out to fight a group of enemies that spawns just a little bit farther away. Usually it's Eurasian cyborgs. And they'll move over, fight them, and then you can just run past. Sometimes a drone will spawn above that, but it doesn't happen very often. You cross the bridge, and 9 times out of 10, there's going to be cyborgs over there. Most of the time I've ran into it, they're crawlers, just crawling on the ground with maybe a few standing up. Sometimes it'll almost all be standing cyborgs, but either way, it's always cyborgs. So you run over there, then you go to extract, whatever. So that's the playthrough of that map. Okay, just to be extra clear, I know I keep on saying exactly, it can be slightly different. So like sometimes an enemy will be switched out with something else that's, like I said earlier, equivalent, or sometimes certain things won't spawn, but usually the main point I'm getting across is that it plays through the same way every single time. Like no matter which enemy spawns there or whatever, it plays through the exact same way for me every time. And like I said, I can switch how I play it, but it displays a problem that the core game has with, like, I shouldn't be able to figure out this method, especially because, I mean, you can see in the video, I'm not doing anything too special. I'm taking a route that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be taking. It's a high loot route, and it's easy to avoid enemies. Like, it's going to be something a lot of people naturally figure out. So, like I said, while I'm saying exact a lot, keep in mind, of course, there's going to be slight discrepancies. I'm really just trying to point out how that is a problem that I'm able to just repeatedly do this route over and over and over again with little to no issue and just make bank. And the only time that this really changes, like if I take that route, is if there's like a special version of the map where it will be foggy and nighttime, and then it'll only be cyborgs. So you get grabbers, stalkers, crawling cyborgs. There's like a special jumping crawling one, I forget what they're called, and then the regular standing cyborgs. They'll be everywhere. By the way, those maps are terrible. Whenever that happens, it's just a pain in the butt. It's not fun because the stealth mechanics don't work. You have to just fight your way through it 9 times out of 10. So you fight them, you just go through you try to get to the extract. Honestly, if I'm ever gonna die, it's on the cyborg ones. But luckily, I found a very cheesy way to get through it, and that's by using an AA-12. That shotgun is overpowered, so I just bring in 100 shotgun rounds and just mow down the enemies. Unless there's a stalker or grabber, but they almost always just spawn down the hill of the village rather than in the village, so usually I'm fine. So yeah, that's like the only difference is if it's that version. But otherwise, I've memorized where all the enemies spawn, and it's actually insane that I'm able to know that. I could walk you through another route that I take on that map too and tell you which enemies that spawn, but there's no point because you'd get a similar story. It's almost exactly the same, just different sets of enemies in different places. That is a huge problem with the game, and I don't want to be overly critical about it because, like I said, it's an early access to an early access, but that is the core components of the game, so I do worry about that. You get an illusion of choice when playing this game. The choice is technically there, but the enemies are always going to be the same. The loot is almost always the same. If you know where something is, it's going to be there every time, is what I'm really getting to. There's an illusion of differences in the map that's not really there, which I definitely have a problem with just because it is the core components of the game. I do really enjoy the game. I've put in quite a few hours already. It's annoying. And also leading me to another point that kind of is annoying to me. There's a false sense of difficulty as well. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier with all the bugs. It's the bugs that cause this false sense of difficulty. People say that this game is really difficult. It's not. Because once you learn those pathways and learn to avoid the bugs, it becomes extremely easy. Extremely easy. I don't know, maybe I'm just good at the game, but honestly, I don't think that's the case. I think it doesn't take very long to memorize the maps and to memorize these routes to avoid. Because at first it feels really difficult, and that's because you have to learn what all these bugs are. You have to learn how to avoid certain things. And then I'm sure it's even more difficult for people that haven't played games in similar genres, but anybody like me, though, it is not a problem. That game is it's a very easy game. And they need to find ways to combat that, because it really is a big issue. But I think I'll leave that part of the rant out there, because that's something I think will kind of fix on its own, hopefully over time. As they start getting rid of the bugs, they're going to realize, hey, these parts of the game need to be more difficult. We need to switch up these spawns. And I know like this last like several minutes of ranting makes it seem like I don't enjoy it, but I really do. I do enjoy it. I just hate that I can't have, it doesn't feel as immersive as I'd like it to be, and it doesn't feel like it is what it sets out to be quite yet. I think I have a limited time before I probably get bored of it, just because I've memorized all this stuff already. Until they fix these spawns and fix how things go. Hopefully soon. I think they're a good team of devs. They've already done a lot of good work. In reality, though, they shouldn't have gave in and let us play this game this early, because there's a lot to be wanted. A lot that just isn't there. It needed at least a few more months in the oven before an early access. Honestly, though, I think BigFry said it, 2 years. It's at least 2 years before this game is in a good point for players to join in who haven't played games like this, and who don't want to deal with an experience that's really buggy and borderline unplayable. I really do think 2 years is a good point to probably join in on this game. But at the same time, I will say they've made some major progress. They've been doing a lot of bug fixes in a short amount of time. And if they keep that up, then who knows, it could be a lot quicker. But for most dev teams, I'd say 2 years. For them, maybe a year. And it'll be in a more playable point, where at that point there will probably still be bugs and it'll probably still be kind of work in progress, but I think it'll be more open to new players of the genre to just hop in and be able to play it relatively bug free. We'll see though. This is all pretty much speculation at this point. So yeah, leaving it at that. Take this criticism lightly for now. I think it'll be something that they fix over time. I can't recommend this game to people who don't. If you're not willing to work around all of these bugs, it's not worth it. Especially, we're paying for this, which is another thing. This should be a pay optional thing. Pay if you want to support the developers. Don't pay otherwise. I should not have to pay for this buggy experience right now. In a couple months, sure. Right now, though, I don't see a reason that they should be charging people unless they want to pay to support them. Like, I would gladly pay for this game just because I do really, really believe in their project and I really want them to succeed with this. But they can't be expecting normies and people that don't care as much to pay for this game. And you could say, sure, well, just don't buy the game, don't play it. But at the same time, that feels like a cop-out way out of it, out of an issue that, like, this shouldn't be a paid game at all right now. It does not offer enough to be a $30 game. Well, 26, 27, whatever it is. There's a lot of people that would gladly pay and put money towards it anyways, like me. So they should just leave that open. That should be an option until it becomes more playable in a month or two. So at least, like, you can play a game that feels like it's on the way to being done, rather than an alpha. I don't know, whatever this is. But yeah, overall, play that game if you don't mind playing a buggy mess and are familiar with the genre. Otherwise, I would stay away. At least a few months, but probably a year. It needs time in the oven. It really does. I guess I'll leave this at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm probably going to get flack for this video, because every video that has any negative criticism on this game for some reason gets absolute flack at it. I just want you guys to keep in mind, this is coming from somebody who does understand the developer's point of view, does understand it's an early access to an early access, and does understand that, like, the whole situation. I've been keeping very much in tune with this. Hopefully there's more understanding with that, but if not, I'll just accept the flack as is. Whatever. Leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, and I'll leave it at that. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.